And welcome to another Cardinals Nest here on HBC TV 25, the sports show exclusively to St. Mary's University and its athletic programs. I'm Dean Beckman, joined by co-host, Sports Information Director Donnie Netto. And Donnie, another great show here today. We're going to be featuring men's tennis. We'll have Jeff Halberg, the head tennis coach. He'll be in to talk about both the women's and men's teams this year. And Alex Zuzek is going to be in our student athlete spotlight a little bit later on with Nathan Voller.
Yeah, it's January 27th and we're already talking tennis. So I guess the spring seasons have officially started, even though there's snow on the ground. But it's going to be great having Jeff on. Jeff's been around for a long time, and I'm really excited to talk to him about this year's teams, because I think that this could be some of the better tennis we're going to see from the Cardinals in a long time. I know that his men's team is extremely deep, extremely experienced, and the women's team has got some great returners as well. So I think that I'm going to put a little pressure on them and expect some big things from them this year.
That's what it sounds like, but certainly a lot of potential there to be sure. So Jeff and Alex will be coming up a little bit later on here in the program. But first, Donnie, we'll start out by talking about men's hockey, because they had been struggling as of late, but getting a much needed win against Hamlin. They had lost the Friday night game, but then came back strong on Saturday. A couple of goals from Marty Gruss. And I know Coach Moore said that it was probably the best overall performance in a long time for the team.
Yeah, they really needed that game. It's offensively they've been playing extremely well. You certainly can't fault the offense. Last weekend they had 10 goals in the two games, 5 in each game, and defensively they played much better on Saturday to get that 5-3 win. I know they were very disappointed on Friday to lose in overtime 6-5, but to gain a split against a team like Hamlin, who won the conference tournament a year ago, so that's a big 3 points, and I think that right now, Coach Moore, they're battling to get into the playoffs. They're in the 5th spot right now, and 5 teams make it. So it's going to be a battle these next 3 weeks. They've got big conference series against Augsburg this weekend. Augsburg leads the conference right now. Then they've got Gustavus the following weekend, and close out against St. John's. And then the hard part, as we've talked about before with the men, is then they have to sit out that last weekend of the regular season, because that's their bye. And so they really need to make their hay right now with these 9 games, while the other teams all have an extra weekend to go. So a big weekend this weekend against Augsburg, and they'll take them 1 game at a time.
Well, and I've got to believe getting that win on Saturday in impressive fashion against a good Hamlin team will set them up nicely against this terrific Augsburg team that they're going to be going against. But as you said, a chance to kind of get back in the race for the top spot, or near the top spot anyway, in the conference.
Absolutely, and I think more than anything, it gives them some confidence. They had been struggling, keeping teams off the scoreboard the 4 games previous to Saturday night, and I think that they proved that they can do it. Jake Tugnutt played very well in goal, and it certainly did his part to get that win. And then, as you mentioned, Marty Gruss had a couple of goals, and he continues to just he continues to put the puck in the net, and that's what all Americans do, and he's been leaned on to provide a lot of offense, and he's really come through. Bob Kinney had a great game, and so the leaders are leading, and they're getting a lot of performances from a lot of different people. But when they need a big goal, Marty was there on Saturday.
Yep, and we hope to have Ben Kinney here on the program next week here on the Cardinals Nest as one of our guests. Donnie, in women's hockey, they also took on Hamlin this past weekend, and going into the weekend, the Cardinals had only scored 6 goals in 6 games. So the offense was struggling, but it broke out in a big way finally on Friday night with a 4-2 win.
Yeah, big. We talk about wins with the men. It was a very big win for the women as well to get a 4-2 victory. They needed that offense to get going. We've talked about it a lot on this show, how the Cardinals are just not able to get over the hump in terms of getting a good, solid offensive performance. And Friday night, 4-2 win. Cassie Lean had a couple of goals for the Cardinals. Good to see her kind of break out and provide some offensive punch. And that's going to be the key as they roll into really the stretch run for them. They've got 4 weekends left, and they're in the 6th spot right now, just a point out of 5th place. So they're battling for that playoff spot as well. And as both Coach Moore and Coach Manor have said, right now the key is get into the playoffs. because once you get into the playoffs, there's 5 teams left, single elimination, anything can happen. Great example is Hamlin men last year. They were the 5th seed last year, and they won the conference playoff title. So once you get into the playoffs, it's a whole new season, and really, I know it's cliche, but anybody can win, and I think that right now that's their focus. Let's get into the playoffs, start a new season, and take it from there.
Well, and I think that's especially true with the women's hockey team because they don't give up a lot of goals. Mara Shields has played well. Even in their losses, they've all been close, competitive, low-scoring games.
Right, and I think that, you look at it and you talk to Coach Manor, and that's what he'll say. Defensively, they're playing very well. Right now it's just every game is that 2-1 type of a game, and if that's the situation, then they need to find a way to be the one with the 2 rather than the 1. The Hamlin game, it was a 2-1 overtime loss the second night after the 4-2 win, and so it was one of those that they got St. Mary's got a late goal in the 3rd period to tie it up, and then Hamlin came through really quick 18 seconds into overtime to get the game winner. So they're going to be in a lot of those games. Every game this season really has been decided by 2 goals or less. So they're used to the close situations. Now they've got to find a way to continually get over that hump and get that 2nd or 3rd goal to put them out front.
All right. Well, here on the Cardinals Nest, we routinely talk about the Cardinals Nest bounce, how when athletes appear on the Cardinals Nest, they tend to do well the following weekend or week when they hit the court or the ice or whatever the case might be. Well, we did it sort of indirectly this past week with when we had Brandy Blattner's uncle on the show last week. And, so it's another week, another couple of wins for St. Mary's women's basketball, and some more awards and accolades for Brandy Blattner, who again continue to have some big performances.
Yeah, I tell you, I don't think there's anybody in the MIAC and now really starting to span out in Division III that hasn't heard the name Brandy Blattner. She's just having an absolutely phenomenal freshman year, and she was Athlete of the Week in the MIAC for the 2nd time this year, and actually made the D3Hoops.com Team of the Week, just a 5-player team that's, it's chosen from all of the Division III schools, and, great honor for her. She averaged a double-double last week, and so, I mean, she's just doing everything she can do, and I think that the rest of the Cardinal women are really feeding off of that, and 2 huge wins against Hamlin and McAllister last week. Finally, for Coach Paulerai, they were games that they controlled from start to finish. There was no question by the time they got to halftime, they were in complete control and really cruised to a couple of big wins over the Pipers and the Scots.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing is too, I think Mackenzie Summers is quietly having a really good year as well, because she had double figures in their win over McAllister, I believe. And sometimes because of the focus and attention on Brandy, both Sam Jones but then also Mackenzie Summers sort of kind of get lost in the mix. But without them and the great guard play that they're getting and the great bench play that they're getting, teams would be able to focus more on Brandy, but they can't because of the way the rest of the team is playing.
And you're 100% right. You hit it right on the head. And I think that I'm sure that Brandy's probably a little tired of the attention that she's getting from us and from the media. But you know what? You're 100% right. This is such a team and such a family that what Brandy does is because of what everybody else is doing. And you're right. It's not just her scoring 26 points and having 12 rebounds. It's Bridget Pethke finding the person to get the ball to. It's Alexa Hoosman doing her part, and it's Mackenzie doing her part, and Emma Schaefer doing hers, and Michaela Meredith doing. They all have a role, and they all understand what that role is, and I think that that's really what's making this team so successful is that they all are doing their role, but they're doing it so well. And if Brandy has an off night and she doesn't always score in double figures or doesn't always have a double-double, there are people to pick her up. Just like when she comes up with a big game, she's maybe picking up the slack for somebody who might be struggling. And I really think that that's the key right now to the fact that they're in first place in the conference, is just that it is such a team and they're so deep. Granted, their roster isn't very big, but they don't really drop off when they go to their bench, and I think that that's a huge advantage for Coach Paulerai.
Yeah, no question about that. Men's basketball, Donnie, unfortunately, they had a 2-game winning streak snapped, but still playing very well, and all of their games are close, competitive. They're really starting to gel and look good out there.
Yeah, they really are, and it's the neat thing we were talking about the women. I think it's the same on the guy side. Is different people are stepping up in different times to lead the way for them. You look at the game against McAllister last Saturday. Aaron Romportal had 20 points. Q Smith-Pugh had a double-double, his first double-double as a Cardinal with 16 points and 11 rebounds. So he's starting to really step into that leadership role. And, so every game it's been somebody different. Will Swigum had a great game against Gustavus on Monday in the loss to the Gusties with 17 points and 9 rebounds. And so everybody is kind of fitting in, and I think they're starting to gel. And you're right, every game they've played lately has been very close. They've been very contested. The game on Monday was another battle right to the finish. And I think that the more that this team plays together, the better they're going to become. And right now, the hard part for them is they're in a tough stretch. They had a game Monday, they had a game Wednesday, they play on Saturday, they play on Tuesday, Saturday, Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. So, in the next 2.5 weeks, they've just got a ton of games, 8 games in less than 3 weeks. So it's going to be a tough haul for them right now, and they're going to need everybody to really be able to give their part and kind of help this team continue on this very strong stretch that they're playing outstanding basketball.
Yeah, they really are. And, even in that loss against Gustavus, they shot over 50% from the field, didn't make free throws, turned the ball over a few too many times, but those are correctable mistakes, so they're definitely on the right path. In track and field for both women and men, terrific meet at the University of Wisconsin Stout for St. Mary's. They had 5 top 10 finishes in that meet, led by Claire Siska, Donnie, who really had a great showing.
Yeah, she really did. And the interesting thing, I talked to Coach Anderson about Claire just yesterday. She won her event in the 400, and she's a distance runner. And so for her to really, she's kind of come down to the sprints now, and so she's kind of had to relearn everything from how to plant your foot all the way to running that race, and just is doing a phenomenal job. And Coach Anderson had nothing but great praise for her and the performance she had. The men's 4x200 relay also took first place in their event. So a lot of good things are happening for the Cardinals. They've got a big meet this weekend at UW River Falls, and so it just continues for them. And I know that Coach Anderson's excited that the team is really starting to show some signs of some great performances. I know we had him on the show last week, and he was talking about not bringing up some names of some newcomers, but Becca Dupe had a phenomenal weekend last weekend. She's a newcomer for him, and James Davis, a sprinter, is doing an outstanding job. And Brian Ortman, who we did talk a lot about last week, did a great job in the jumps as well with 2 top 5 finishes. Yeah. So it's the old and the new, but they're all kind of doing the same thing, and that is really competing well for the Cardinals.
Absolutely. We've got to get to tennis, but we should mention too, this weekend it's the St. Mary's University Swimming and Diving Invitational, so we'll have all of the results and talk more about that on next week's Cardinals Nest. Well, stay tuned. Jeff Halberg, the head coach for the men's and women's tennis teams, in next here on HBC TV 25.
Want the latest news on St. Mary's University athletics? Watch the Cardinals Nest on HBC TV 25. Dean Beckman and SMU Sports Information Director Donnie Netto will talk about the past week in Cardinal athletics, highlighting the best in each Cardinal sports team. Player and coach guests will add their stories and insight each week with new shows Thursdays at 5 p.m. and replays Fridays at 6:30 p.m. and Saturdays at 7:30 a.m. on HBC TV 25.
Go beyond entertainment with HBC GigaWorld and get the broadband experience. Video chat without buffering. Stream your favorite shows and movies with TV to go. Dominate your online games and more with gigabit internet speeds. Watch over 300 video channels, including high definition, sports, HBO, Cinemax Stars Plus, Encore Showtime, and more. Call friends and family with reliable, crystal clear, unlimited local and domestic long distance phone service. Experience broadband the way it's meant to be with HBC GigaWorld. Visit hbci.com to get started today.
And thanks for joining us here on HBC TV 25. This is the Cardinals Nest. Dean Beckman, Donnie Netto, and Jeff Halberg joining us now. Jeff is the head coach for both the women's and men's tennis teams at St. Mary's. And Jeff, thanks for joining us. Now, after hearing about the Cardinals bounce and the Cardinals nest bounce that we talked about earlier on the program, you probably want to get in every single name of every single player.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, just kind of run through the roster here. So, yeah.
But Jeff, 18 years now at St. Mary's. So your 18th year, does it seem that long? Kind of give us a little reflection on your career so far.
Well, I always say that, it's a kind of a balance between the players keep you young sometimes, but of course they just stay the same age, and I just keep getting further and further away. So, yeah, it's kind of a balance. It depends on the day. If I'm tired, I'm thinking, wow, I've been here a long time. But on other days, I'm just excited to be out on the court with them. It's a great bunch of players.
Not to dwell on our age because we are old, but can you talk a little bit about how the game has changed in terms of St. Mary's, in terms of coaching them? What's been the biggest difference between the tennis player of today and maybe the tennis player of 10 years ago?
Sure. Well, I mean, part of it, honestly, was, the school really did invest in making better facilities available to St. Mary's, really, when I came in. And that was a big step because without the proper places to be able to prepare, it's really tough. And back in you think back in the '80s, I coached. I was the assistant coach for Tom Farron for 3 years, and Tom, he started off with, he had one court in the gymnasium that he would have to use for all the teams, and then of course when the club opened in '91, he was able to develop it to some degree, but that it's tough to keep up with the Joneses when you didn't have the proper facilities. But that's not the case anymore. We've been at the tennis club for a long time, and it's actually a place that our opponents, they like coming. I mean, I always have more home matches than away matches every year because it's not hard to get somebody to go, yeah, I'll come and play with you guys. That'd be awesome. So that's a big key, and because that attracts the kind of players that you need to compete in the MIAC. It's it's one of the best conferences in the country in a lot of sports, including tennis, and so, if you don't have the proper facilities, it's going to be tough to convince those good players to come. But we do have that. And so, consequently, we've got a good squad of people. It's deep and talented, and it could be an exciting year.
Let's start with the men, because you are deep and talented. You have an extremely large senior class this year. So these guys have been through the wars for 3 years. Have you talked at all about what your expectations are from them this year?
Well, the nice thing is that it's actually, I haven't had to dwell a lot on it because they've really taken it on themselves. As an example, just the other day I had one of my players, Blake Olmscheid, was hitting with one of the freshmen on the team, and I could actually kind of sit back and watch and witness Blake really trying to help the player along, and that's priceless. Because as much as I want to be able to lead and help mentor the players along, it really is the players' team. They have to be the ones that really take the lead and say, I'm going to step up, coach, I'm ready to go. And when they step up and they take a freshman and say, hey, I want to help you out because I've been there and I know I can help you. That's great. It's great. Creates a great bond, and it's like having, I have 5 assistant coaches. It's a great bonus to have. The only scary part is replacing them a year from now. Right. So,
yeah. Well, you have a couple of returning first-team all-conference players in Colin Kazarowski and Tim Wolford. Maybe talk about their leadership and what they mean to the team.
Absolutely. Colin, one of the great things about Colin is that he's a warrior. He's going to joke about this if he watches this because he knows I always do this to him. But, I mean, you can't teach that kind of fight. He's just, he absolutely refuses to lose tennis matches. You really have to outplay him to beat him. But he also takes that to his teammates. And frankly, I mean, he's even helped the ladies team too. I mean, he'll show up and be like, Coach, you need, I can hit with the gals if they need an extra player, in the off, just in off times, when they have a break and stuff like that. He's helped a number of them along, and because he just cares, and he really wants to be successful, and he wants the team to be successful, and of course, Tim. He's just done so much personally to develop his game from where he was freshman year to now. is amazing, and you know, I really he's an example to the players in that way, and of course he's just the style of his play. He's just a fantastic player to watch because he's a powerful player. He's incredibly fast, so he's an absolute nightmare for anyone to take on. So.
You know, as a coach, it's got to be kind of nice this year because really the lineup's going to be the same as it was last year. You didn't lose anybody. And that's a rarity in this day and age in Division III athletics to have a team where you actually return everybody from a team that was very good last year. How good can this team be?
Well, you know, knock on wood, you know, we just stay injury free. I think, you know, we've had a history of doing well, seniors doing well. You know, kind of having that, you know, really peaking at the right time. You know, obviously there's no guarantees of those things, and you can't predict all things that happen. You know, we've got a few minor injuries right now, nothing really greatly concerning, but of course we've got to get over that to be able to reach our peak. But yeah, it'll be an interesting weekend to see how things kind of settle in and we kind of go from there. But
Jeff, let's look at the women's team now because again, this is a deep, talented team, albeit pretty young. Just one senior on the roster, and so maybe talk about your expectations for the women's team and some of those key returning contributors this year.
Sure. I mean, you have to mention Kirsten Hoffman and Megan Vandenberg and Haley Jorgensen, Ashley Zayed. Those guys, you know, they were obviously right in the mix of things last year. Got us a lot of wins. Pulled out a number of big matches. You know, Haley had tied at 4-all. She pulls out a couple. You know, Kirsten did it against an NAIA All-American last year to get a 5-4 win. I mean, so there's experience there and clear talent, you know, and they also, of course, are really helping the 4 freshmen kind of gel in and become a part of things. So it's really an exciting time for us. You know, again, because it's new and because we have a number of freshmen that will factor in the lineup. It's still a little bit of an unknown, but based on what I've been watching this past week, I'm not afraid of anybody.
What's the biggest adjustment going from the high school tennis to college tennis game, do you think?
Partially, you know, when in high school, it's there's a lot more range of abilities. And in non-conference play, we run into that to some degree, but in our conference, everybody's good. So you really are playing the best players from the other high schools that have now stepped in. You're going to have more power, certainly more aggression, especially in doubles. It's a very aggressive game, closing the net and playing a much more attacking style, and that's an adjustment. Ironically, one of our freshmen, Laura Sunday, she actually had well, it was unfortunate at the time. She actually injured her knee last year, about a year and a half ago, and she couldn't play the girls' season. But because she hadn't played the girls' season, she got permission to play the boys' season, and that actually worked out great for her and for us because she was playing in a more aggressive style, playing with getting used to playing with more powerful players, and so she kind of came in just flying because she can absolutely hammer the ball, and she's not afraid of getting the ball hit hard at her because she's done it. And so that was almost like having a college prep season for her, and it was great for us, and of course great for her.
Sure. All right, well, Jeff, thanks for being on the program. Best of luck this weekend as you get things started and throughout the season here.
Absolutely.
All right, so stay tuned here to the Cardinals Nest. When we come back, we'll talk to one of Coach Halberg's sophomore male players. It's Alex Zuzek. He'll be in our Student Athlete Spotlight with Nathan Voller. That's next here on HBC TV 25.
Integrate your business communications services with HBC. You'll be connected to the area's leader in internet and data solutions with speeds up to 1 gigabit, not to mention the most customizable and reliable telephone network in the area. Your customers and guests will enjoy crystal clear video and audio throughout your business. HBC Professional Solutions customers receive consulting and IT support, conferencing solutions, fast reliable cloud service, and more. Call 888-474-9995 to experience the HBC difference today.
And we're back here to wrap things up on the Cardinals Nest on HBC TV 25. I want to thank Coach Jeff Halberg from the women's and men's tennis team for being our guest today. Certainly big expectations. Look forward to hearing about their weekend on next week's show as they get underway this weekend. Also this weekend, Saturday at 2 o'clock, right here on HBC TV 25, we'll have the women's hockey game as they take on Augsburg. We had told you earlier in the program how the Cardinals getting back on track offensively, and they'll have to do so against one of the better defensive teams in the conference, Augsburg. So they'll do that 2 o'clock this Saturday right here on HBC. Finally here in the program, it's time for our Student Athlete Spotlight, and this week Nathan Voller talks with Alex Zuzek from the men's tennis team.
The Cardinals men's tennis team is excited for the new season, which will be starting up this Friday versus Bethany College. One of the team's rising talents is Alex Zuzek, a sophomore from Hastings, Minnesota, who will be the focus of this week's Student Athlete Spotlight.
I chose St. Mary's after I had toured a decent amount of schools, and I have a couple older sisters that both went here, and I never thought I'd like it or follow them, and then I toured more and I realized I did like it here, so I chose that. I knew I wanted to be a teacher, so then they have a good education program, and wherever I was going to go, I thought it would be fun to play tennis, and I was able to do that here, so it worked out very nicely. Last year I noticed right away on like the first day that we practiced, the level of tennis is just different. It's harder, everyone hits the ball. No one is bad. In high school you'd run into teams or players that were just bad, kind of like, what are you doing out on the court right now? But right now, in college, especially in the conference that we play in, there's no bad team. Well, our toughest opponent would be Gustavus. They're always nationally ranked and they're in our conference, and they've won the conference like 20 or 30 some years in a row. Our most competitive opponents are we're normally very competitive with Bethel and St. John's and McAllister. Last year we had 5-4 matches, or 4-5 with all three of them. So that'll probably be tight again this year. So the conference last year, I think we won by the most against Hamlin and Concordia. But I mean, both of those teams are only improving, and they may be towards the bottom of our conference, but they're still like pretty good compared to a lot of teams that we've played out of conference. I get along very well with all my teammates. I have different relationships with all of them, and we have a lot of fun playing during matches and like cheering each other on during matches and competing together, and then hanging out after, or just hanging out on the weekends, or just like every day at practice. We have fun, we joke around some, that type of thing. All the seniors, really, even last year and stuff when they were all juniors, have done a really good job leading us and helping us learn more about college tennis. And Blake and Tim might be a couple of the more fiery. Warren is always positive and keeps us positive and stuff like that. Colin is very, very competitive, and as is my favorite thing about the actual game. I really like hitting volleys. I love being at the net, attacking the net. I mean, I like singles too, but I especially love doubles and certain drills and games that we do. Last year I played with a couple different partners. Last year I was just playing exhibition, and we don't know for sure the lineup this year or anything yet. But like Tim and Colin, they always played doubles together last year. They'll play together again this year. They got ranked in the region last year, so they're very good. And Alex Holm and Warren had a really good showing at the ITAs in the fall, so they'll probably, I would guess that they would play together. I don't know for sure. If it's a really close match that ends up 4-5 or 5-4, and like say you played singles and you lost, that can be really disappointing, and you can think it's all on you, but in all reality there's 4 other people or doubles teams that lost, so it's not on you, but it probably feels like that can be tough. Or sometimes it's like any sport, you just kind of go through some slumps, but you have to find a way to get out of them. And I mean, that can be as easy as like one good day of practice, or like say it's like your forehand is really something that can be staying after practice for 15 minutes and just having one of the coaches hit some forehands to you and working on it like that, or having a teammate hit with you. You should play tennis here. Why someone should choose St. Mary's. We have a nice, fun team, good group of guys. We have really nice facilities. It's not on campus, but it's like 4 or 5 minutes away, and those courts are as nice as pretty much any that we play on all year.